Should I? Should I? Should I? Let's do it. Let's do it. Because I don't like people getting taken advantage of, bro. You know what I mean? And if you notice one thing about me, I tend to stay away from religion, race, politics, all that type of stuff like that. You know what I mean? I try to tend to stay away from that because it's no right, wrong, or whatever. You know what I mean? I mean, it's wrong in some things, but trying to convince somebody else that it's wrong, it's hard to do, bro. It's hard to do. So I tend to stay away from those topics sometimes unless, you know, I accidentally bump into it. Now, don't get me wrong. If I bump into the topic, then we can have that discussion. I don't back down from no type of smoke, no type of discussion. You know what I mean? I ain't backing down from no smoke. My dog named Smoke, and I ain't backing down from him neither. You know what I mean? But this topic here, I mean, this has been an ongoing discussion since I was a kid, bro. And we talking about preachers. You know, this video is 9 times preachers went terribly wrong. You know, you hear the comedians all the time make fun of. Me and Queen was just watching the original Kings of Comedy the other day, right? You know, and I think it might have been Steve Harvey on there talking about the building fund. You know, some of these churches been having building funds since I was born, you know, and they still got a building fund. But, you know, you hope that's never the case. But there are some instances, man, where some of these quote unquote preachers are taking advantage of the congregation, man. You know, they're not using the money for what they said it's going towards, your tithes, your offerings, all that type of stuff like that. It's not, you know, and we have to call a spade, bro. It's some people out there who are just manipulating the people, and that's wrong. So when we see that, we got to speak on it. So this video is obviously going to address it. It may hit a nerve with some people. Well, that's cool. Let's talk about it in the comment section. All right, let's check it out. 9 times preachers went terribly wrong. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, all that. Address the haters. Moment of silence for the haters. That's enough. Now run the likes up, baby. Let's check this video out.
From stealing from the hungry to killing their congregation, here's 9 preachers gone wrong.
Oh, this might even be crazier than I was thinking.
Number 9, stealing from the needy. In the west side of Chicago, a church run by Reverend Clarence Smith Jr., called the New Life Impact Church, served as a safe place for lost souls in the neighborhood. It was a place where the hungry could be fed. At least that's what it was supposed to be. In reality, the Reverend was stealing from his members. Hundreds of thousands of dollars that came from a federally funded program to feed children in need was taken by Smith. What did he spend that money on, you might ask? Well, $142,000 of it was spent on a Bentley, and more was spent on other luxury goods, and that's just what was uncovered in 2020. Smith has a long history of financial deviancy.
Oh, he gotta catch every one of these elbows, bro. How would you feel, fam? Nah, he gotta go, bro. We gotta throw him off from the top of the church, bro. Ain't no way. Fam took the church money, your hard-earned money, bro. You know what I'm saying? And I always tell people to break it down, bro. Think about how long it takes you to make $100 or $1,000, right? And then for you to take a percentage of that, and you're following your beliefs, and whatever your beliefs are telling you to do with a portion of your money, you're doing that just to find out that somebody's not even, you know what I'm saying? Like, no, fam, do you know how long it took me to make this? Oh, you finna catch all these knees and elbows, bro.
10 years prior, the Reverend was accused of swindling an elderly man. He supposedly used multiple signature forgeries to get over 100 grand from the poor guy. And that's not where his money troubles and sketchy behavior started. In 2012, he owed $80,000 in restitution fees, but he filed personal bankruptcy to get out of it. Plus, he'd been sued twice by companies meant to supply food after he bailed on their contracts. And he's $8 grand overdue on his church's property taxes. His recent...
Wait a minute, bro. How are you overdue and buying a Bentley? $100 and some $1,000 car, but you overdue? Oh, yeah. I gotta put hands and feet on him. Hands and feet. All hands and feet.
Crime stemmed from him over-reporting the number of meals he served to the needy. So the government sent him more money than he ever needed. Close to $1 million was given to Smith's church, but he would take it and use it for himself. So what happened to him? Nothing. Well, he's under court supervision. Not exactly nothing, but it's more than likely he'll get off with no hard convictions. Number 8. CREFLO dollar. Most people have some kind of bad experience with an airline, whether it be losing luggage, missing a flight, or getting delayed. The difference between
A lot of us grew up watching this guy. Now, I don't know what's true or what's not true about this, but a lot of us grew up watching this guy. You know why? Because he was on like right in the morning before you went to school. So if you had your TV on in the morning, it wasn't on a specific channel, and your mom might have been a spiritual type of person like mine was, you might have had CREFLO dollar on in the morning while you were getting ready for school. So a lot of us are familiar with. So when stories about him started surfacing, I was like, yo, no, are you serious? I like messed my whole childhood up. My whole childhood.
between Pastor CREFLO dollar and most people, though, is that most people don't think the solution to the problem is buying a $65 million private jet. But that's exactly what CREFLO asked his followers to help him do. He wanted each of his 200,000 members to donate $300 to the cause, claiming it was so he could safely and swiftly share the good news of the gospel worldwide. To us, it sounds like he just wants a private jet to fly around the world in. There are so many better ways to use the money, like feeding the hungry, providing shelter, or just helping the needy in any way. But no, a $65 million jet is the solution to all the world's inequalities. And sadly, it looks like CREFLO is going to get what he wants. His official ministries organization, the World Changers Church International, made an official announcement that they are ready to buy the jet. This isn't where CREFLO's unholy deed started, though. Back in 2012, he was arrested after getting into an argument with his 15-year-old daughter. She claimed that he punched and choked her, which he, of course, denied. Thankfully, the court wasn't as gullible as his congregation and still charged him with 2 misdemeanor counts: cruelty to children and simple battery. Despite this, CREFLO is still getting his jet, so get ready to see him flying around the world soon, spreading his gospel. Number 7.
Now, I don't go to CREFLO church, but I would definitely want to know how some of the members that felt about that. You know what I'm saying? Like, 65 M's, bro, for a private jet. Like, I'm never one that, and this kind of makes me a little bit uncomfortable at the same time, because I'm never clocking anyone's pockets, but sometimes certain things just feel wrong. You feel what I'm saying? Like some things just feel wrong, and I can't deny that feeling.
Paul Jennings Hill. Sometimes people take their beliefs way too far, and Paul Jennings Hill is the perfect example of this. As a minister in the small town of Pensacola, Florida, with a beautiful wife and 3 kids, Hill had the textbook definition of a cookie-cutter perfect life. But sometimes he took his preachings a little too far, and one day, off the deep end. You see, Hill was a well-known anti-abortion extremist, even making multiple television appearances where he said so-called defensive action must be taken against those who provide abortions. Shortly after these appearances, the Orthodox Presbyterian Church excommunicated him for his unholy activism. A year later, in 1994, Hill took his beliefs and turned them into actions. He walked into an abortion clinic in his town named the Ladies Center. One of the doctors at the clinic and his bodyguard, John Britton and James H. Barrett, were the first Hill spotted. He opened fire on the 2 of them with a shotgun at close range, killing them both. The bodyguard's wife, June, was also nearby and wounded. Luckily, she survived the attack. Once he finished what he intended to do, Hill simply waited for police to arrive and arrest him. The excommunicated minister received the death penalty for his crimes against humanity, but he felt no remorse. While waiting on death row for 10 years, he once told the media that a great reward in heaven awaited him. On September 3, 2003, Hill was executed by lethal injection, a fitting end for a sick, misguided man. Number 7.
So let me get this straight. You're opposed to people killing babies or fetuses or however, having abortions. Let's just say having abortions, right? You're opposed to that type of killing, but yet in turn you go and kill people. Somebody connect the dots for me, make that make sense, huh? You don't like death to babies, but you would commit Murder? You don't like unborn fetuses dying or however you classify it, but you would murder some people, huh? And not think twice about it. Just don't add up to me, that's all I'm saying.
6. Andy Savage. People can change, but does that mean they should be forgiven for everything they've done in the past? Well, sometimes sorry doesn't cut it. The High Point Church hosts a congregation of over 2,000 members every week in Memphis. One pastor of the megachurch, named Andy Savage, did the unspeakable. Over 20 years ago, when he was 22, serving as a youth pastor, he admitted to a sexual incident with a high school student he was teaching. What he described as an incident, his victim, Jules Woodson, called sexual assault. She came forward with the ordeal during the #MeToo movement. Woodson claimed that Savage took advantage of the power dynamic between them, as her teacher is an overreaching abuse of power. After it happened, he begged her for forgiveness and was beside himself, asking for her not to tell anyone. Unfortunately, the statute of limitations was up, so the assault could not be legally pursued. Andy did receive quite a bit of backlash though, and, very surprisingly,
There's a statute of limitations on that?
Unfortunately, the statute of limitations was up, so the assault could not be legally pursued. Andy did receive quite a bit of backlash though, and, very surprisingly, some praise. Savage publicly announced to his congregation, "After much prayer and counsel, I now believe it's appropriate for me to resign from my staff position at High Point Church and step away from ministry in order to do everything I can to right the wrongs of the past." This announcement and admission of guilt was oddly met with a standing ovation from the churchgoers and many online who praised Savage for admitting his mistakes. Owning up to what you did doesn't fix everything though. Jules Woodson has had to live with the trauma of her assault for over 20 years, while Savage is just receiving a pinch of the pain she had to deal with. What do you think about Mr. Savage? Should he receive some savage punishment? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you like this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe button if you haven't already. Number 5. Ted Haggard. Formerly one of the country's leading pastors for the evangelical faith, Ted Haggard's megachurch empire crumbled after it was discovered he wasn't as devout as he preached he was. Back in 1984, the pastor started off his career in Colorado Springs. He claimed that a vision from God told him he needed to create a church at the center of evangelism. Starting with a measly 22 people, Haggard grew his church, called the New Life Church, into over 14,000 members, making it one of the biggest churches in America. During this time, he was named the president of the National Association of Evangelicals. But what was going on behind the scenes? Everything he built up fell apart in 2006, when claims came out from a gay prostitute, claiming Haggard had paid him for sexual acts multiple times. His empire fell overnight. Forced to give up his job at the church he created, he moved to Arizona. While there, he says he received counseling to talk about his sexuality more. He admitted to having gay urges because of a molestation from a man when he was a child, but that overall he was straight. Many were openly outraged with Haggard after he preached homosexuality was wrong, then hypocritically participating.
See, most people wouldn't have had no issue probably with him if they condemn you and then turn around and go and do the exact same thing they just condemned you for. So when you have that, that's why. That's exactly why right there. That's crazy.
In the very same acts, he now talks openly about the whole incident and says the scandal increased his faith. After a few years of reflection, Haggard and his wife, who stuck with him through everything, have opened a new church that welcomes LGBTQ members. Hopefully, Haggard will now be accepting of different people and begin to practice what he preaches. Number 4. Hillsong. A millennial hypebeast preacher named Carl Lentz's career was taken down last year in November 2020 due to allegations of him cheating on his wife. The preacher worked for the world-famous Hillsong Church that has locations in over 30 countries with 150,000 weekly members attending sermons. Lentz served as the head pastor in the New York Hillsong Outpost, and he was well known for looking unconventional to the typical preacher. He's decked out in tattoos and often dressed like a hipster, most likely to appeal to younger audiences. He's even known for having high-profile celebrity followers, such as the Biebers, Selena Gomez, Vanessa Hudgens, and more. Despite all this success, Lentz was let go from his job as pastor at the end of 2020, and the very next day, he posted a picture of himself and his family at Justin Bieber and Hailey Bieber's wedding, with the caption admitting that he was unfaithful to his wife. In interviews with multiple news outlets, Ranin Karim, a young actor and jewelry designer, admitted to an affair with Lentz that lasted months. Lentz's wife, Laura, only found out about the affair after a staffer at the Hillsong office saw Lentz's messages to Ranin on his computer. Yet again, Lentz gives us an example that preachers aren't always holy, and they don't always follow the word of the Bible as law. They are, after all, just human. Number 3, Warren Jeffs. Buckle your seatbelts, because the next entry is going to be a bit culty. Warren Jeffs served as the president of the FLDS, or the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a denomination of the Mormon religion. The FLDS broke off from the main LDS church in order to practice polygamy. In case you didn't know, that's having multiple wives. Jeff lived in a compound along with other fundamentalist members where some seriously messed up stuff went down. Jeff's father, Rulon, was the leader of the FLDS for many years. He had over 60 children and 20 wives.
How? 60, bro? How? When do you got time to do anything else? 60. Sheesh.
DS for many years. He had over 60 children and 20 wives. Oddly enough, after Rulon's death, Jeff married many of his father's wives, but that's not all he did. As the highest member in the church, he held the sole right to perform and assign marriages. In 2006, he was on the FBI's most wanted list for arranging marriages between underage girls and adult men. Additional charges against him included sexual conduct with minors and incest. After multiple years of court, Jeff was finally convicted to life in prison. While serving time, he has tried to hang himself, gone on multiple hunger strikes, and has been hospitalized at least once. Many believe that he somehow is continuing to lead the FLDS from behind bars, and present-day members still consider him to be one of God's chosen prophets. Number 2, Jeffrey Lundgren. The FLDS wasn't the only cult to stem off of the Mormon faith. Jeffrey Lundgren was a self-proclaimed prophet in the 1980s that led one of these so-called cults. It was during these years that Lundgren would lead Bible study sessions for his followers out of his home. At these sessions, he would bully and discourage anyone who did not agree with his biblical interpretations. Eventually, he amassed a few devoted followers, some of whom gave Lundgren their life savings to support his preaching. One day, he told his followers that he received a vision from God, telling him they must move to Kirtland, Ohio, in order to witness the second coming of Jesus Christ himself. During this time, Lundgren lived with 7 of his followers. The only ones who didn't live in the same building were the Averys. Lundgren saw this as an obvious sin against himself and God, and he was especially angry to find out that Averys had a separate bank account to use only for their family. He kept telling his followers that they had to seize the Kirtland Temple by force in order to see God, but he soon changed his preaching. He told them that they had to kill a family of 5 in order to show their devotion. It just so happens that there were 5 members of the Avery family. To prepare for the wicked crime, Lundgren told his followers to dig a pit in the barn close to where they lived in order to bury the bodies there. After a meeting with all the church followers, including the Averys, Lundgren and his accomplices killed all 5 members of the Avery family. Their bodies weren't discovered until 9 months later, when the police received a tip about the barn. Lundgren was given the death penalty by lethal injection and was executed in 2006. Just another preacher overcome by power. And number 1, Barry MINKOW. Barry MINKOW has a long history of being a convicted felon, before and after his time as a preacher. His early crimes consisted of Ponzi schemes, where he scammed investors out of $100 million in one of the biggest accounting fraud cases of all time. After serving decades in prison for this crime, MINKOW got out and seemingly was on the straight and narrow path since he started teaching ethics as a pastor in San Diego. It was in San Diego that one of MINKOW's congregation members asked him about a nearby money management firm. After looking into it, he realized something was off, so he tipped off the authorities, who discovered a $300 million pyramid scheme. With this major success, he started the Fraud Discovery Institute, where he worked as a fraud investigator, looking into cases similar to his own. But just because he was a fraud investigator doesn't mean he stopped committing fraud. He scammed his own church out of millions, and was sentenced to more time in prison. He was released in 2019 and now lives in a small town outside of Tennessee after his movie-worthy roller coaster of a life. Thanks for watching. Which of these preachers shocked you the most? Tell us about it.
I know. It's a lot to take in, bro. It's a lot to deal with. A lot of you, this is already something you've either witnessed or thought about, seen, had, you know, thoughts in your mind of maybe this possibly could be going on, you know, and it sucks, man, because you place your trust in certain people in your lives, man, and sometimes preachers or evangelists or, you know what I mean? Those are people that you often feel like you shouldn't have to keep an eye or a close eye or watch eye on them. But like dude said in the video, man, they're human just like us. They make mistakes just like us, you know, and you have to remember that. They're not above anything. They're not above us. They're not. They're the same as we are. They make mistakes. They put their pants on one leg at a time, you know, and some of them are crooked. You got to learn that. You got to be able to keep an eye out on it. You know, next time they send a collection plate in your church around 8 times and you only been there an hour, bro, start trying to figure out, like, maybe something's not right here. You know what I'm saying? But nah, but this is still, it's always crazy to hear. You know, you never know what you want to, what part is true or not, but it's always tough to hear. Yeah, so, y'all get at me in the comment section, man. Let me know what y'all think, and stick around and stay tuned. Till next reaction, I'm gone. Peace.